All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Bassin Biology. I'm your host, Thad Moody. Again, if you're wondering why I'm in the robe, it's because my university charges a whole lot of money for me to wear this for my master's program, and I'm getting my money's worth. Flappy sleeves and all. All right. Today, we're going to be covering another somewhat controversial topic. Before we get into that, though, if you're wondering why I'm sweating like I am, it's because I'm recording this in my garage in Mississippi during the summer, and heat index like 108. It's like a sauna in here, so if I'm sweating, it's going to happen. Today's topic, catch and release. Is it possible that catch and release is ruining our fisheries? Let's dive into that today. So, again, guys, handy dandy notes right here. Always have them, always need them. Make sure you record what you're doing. Help you in the future. Catch and release and the effects it has on the fisheries, both good and bad. So let's look at some pros and cons real quick. Let's look at a pro. There's a ton of catch and release in an area. More than likely, you're going to have a large catch rate. You have a lot more fish to catch. Higher populations. It's fun for kids. You know, fishing in today's world is different than it was kind of when I was growing up. People have taken a lot of the fun out of it. If you have a high catch and release pond, farm pond, or lake or something like that, there's a large population of bass in there, and you take kids out there, it gets them hooked on fishing. It really does. We found this out in the 4-H program I started. We took these kids, or even first time, people who've never caught a fish, parents too, who had never caught a fish before, if you took them to these high population density, high catch and release areas, ponds, small lakes, whatever you want to call it there, and these kids, or these adult first timers, were able to catch a lot of fish, every 5, 6, even 10 minutes, they're able to, I caught a fish. It keeps the kids, especially the younger ones, interested. It keeps them coming back for more, keeps them wanting more. So in one aspect of the catch and release world, that's a pro. Being able to use that high population density, that high catch rate to bring back kids, get them involved in the sport, show them a good time, let them have fun. First timers, kids, either one, having a high population density is perfect for that. Even me, I love going to some of these farm ponds and just catching the ever-living crap out of bass. They're all small. They're all inverted. They're all itty-bitty bass. We'll get into the cons of that in a minute. But it was an absolute blast. When I was doing a lot of fisheries management, I would ask these farmers, these people who's like, well, I need a bunch of fish taken out of this pond. I'd ask them if I could bring the 4-H group I work with to come out there and fish. Them and their parents, they would have an absolute blast. Farmers love it, seeing the kids and the parents go out there and catch fish and have a great time. Always respectful, always cleaned up the pond area, always took out all the fish they wanted to. So in that aspect, it's really good. Next, if you catch a really high catch and release area, you're going to definitely have breeding stock. You're always going to throw the breeding stocks back. So that's good. It creates the next generation, which is both good and bad in a way, and we're going to get to that in the cons of the situation. If you notice today, I upgraded my microphone, so you see a little fuzzy right there above my head. That's what that is. Thought I'd throw that in there. So that's two big good pros of it, is you have a guaranteed next generation breeding stock, and you're able to bring back first timers and kids wanting more, getting them involved in the sport, keeping them involved in the sport. That's big pros of it, because without the next generation coming up, without them getting involved and having fun, our sport dies. License sales drives management, conservation. So we have to have that next generation come up. So having a highly density area of fish to catch, whether it be brim, crappie, or bass, catfish, whatever it is, for these kids and these first timers to get them involved is a fantastic thing. Now, let's look a little more to the cons, and this is where people are probably going to get real mad in my comments, and I'm here for it. did fisheries management biology for a long time. I've heard a lot of the angry things about it, but let's look at some science behind it. All right. Cons. Overpopulation. Huge con. You have a huge catch and release, and a bass is normally around a 90% catch and release of it. Normally around a 60% survival rate of catch and release. Overpopulation. Unbalanced food chains. Unhealthy bass. Overpredation of bait fish. Stunted growth. So let's hit each one of them right now. Overpopulation. While it's fun for kids, it's not really good for a lake or a pond. The overpopulated leads to an unbalanced food chain. A ton of these small bass eat up all the small bait fish, and there's not enough to go around, so it stunts their growth. It creates an unhealthy balance in the food chain. You'll have a lot of these people say, well, I'm catching all these big brim. That's true. 7-pound bass can eat an 8 or 9 inch shad, no problem. It's not going to eat 6 or 7 inch bluegill because bluegills developed over years anti-predation spikes. That's why they have them horrible spikes on their back, on the back fins there, and that leads to on the dorsal fins. I can't believe I blank on that. They get stuck in the bass's throat, so they can't eat the big ones. They eat the little ones all day long. So you'll catch you'll have a bunch of these big brim in there, and you'll have a bunch of these little tiny micro brim, but you're not going to have the medium-sized brim because they're just getting completely wiped out in most of your farm ponds and small lakes. I said, big bass can eat big shad, not so much giant bluegill or giant shell crackers. They just can't do it. That's evolution over the years that predator-prey has evolved to help stop each other. So that kind of leads you to unbalanced food chain. Stunted growth. We've all caught them. These little fish, they're this big, they got the inverted stomach. These fish are starving. Now, if you're catching these after a spawn or after they've been fry garden, yes, they're going to have an inverted stomach. They're burning thousands of calories. They're not getting back anytime soon when they lay eggs, defend eggs, create a nest during spawn and post-spawn. Inverted stomach's fine. That's going to happen. See, it's sweating. It's hot. That's going to happen. That's just part of it. But in these overpopulation, you may catch in the late fall or pre-spawn all these inverted bellied fish that are just absolutely starving. You'll see it. And even after the spawn, they'll start, cannibalization. They'll eat each other. They eat the smaller ones the next generation. So you keep catching them all and throwing them back. It's not a ideal situation when it comes to that because it creates an overpopulation. And we've seen it in a lot of lakes and see it severely in farm ponds and like 10-acre lakes and down that they say, oh, I want to build this trophy lake. Well, they just catch and throw everything back, and then they have a problem, and then they call people like me to fix it. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. So, that's the cons of it. Overpopulation, unbalanced food chain, unhealthy bass, they're starving, overpredation bait fish, there's not enough food to go around, and stunted growth. And the reason there's not enough food to go around, and you see the inverted stomach stuff a lot, and the fish aren't growing like you would think they would. We take the osseous bone out right there and look at it and see how old these fish are. And we're seeing 3 and 4 year old fish that should be 3 to 5 pounds. They're 1.5 pounds. Or you'll see them, they got a 7-pound mouth and a 3-pound body. That's due to overpopulation. That's due to not being enough food abundance. And that can actually lead to spreads of disease and parasites down the way that can just absolutely devastate a fishery. So overpopulation is not a good thing. And there's a balance to it. So in order to have a really healthy food chain in your lake, for every 1 pound of bass, you need around 10 to 12 pounds of feeder fish in Mississippi. So if I've got a 2-pound bass and I want that bass in the next year to make it to 3+ pounds, I need at least 20 to 25 pounds of feeder fish for able to grow that correct thing. 8-pound bass, you need 80 to 90 pounds of feeder fish to get from 8 to 9 pounds. So if you've got, 1,000 little bitty bass and they're just eating everything up, big fish aren't growing, those little fish aren't getting all they need to grow like they should, so you got to take some out. On average, you need to take around, depending on where you are, this is going off Mississippi, this is where I've done most of my fisheries research is here in Mississippi, you need to take out in between 10 and 20 pounds of bass per acre per year in your ponds and lakes. And big lakes like Ross Barnett, Sardis, or Gunnersville, you could take out 20 or 30 pounds of bass per acre, and it probably would never create a problem with the population of bass there. There's so many fish in these lakes. It may become a little harder to catch some if you just take out just mega amounts, but again, you will grow bigger fish. And if you want to grow trophy-sized bass, you have to follow these management plans. You have to take fish out. And when we're talking about taking fish out, we're not talking about taking them out every single fish you catch. Record what you take out. Don't take out a ton of fish pre-spawn, spawn, and just right after post-spawn. It's normally recommended you take out these fish in the fall. I know this is turning a little bit into fisheries management versus catch and release, but it all relates back to each other. You want to take out these fish in the fall, because in the spring, a lot of times your bass are spawning. That gives you your next generation. You take them out in the fall, that gives enough for your next generation to start to grow and catch up to the rest. So you want to take them out in the fall. So catch and release. We talked about some pros. It's fun to catch a lot of fish. Talk about some cons. Releasing too many fish back into your area can cause overpopulation, stunted growth, and unhealthy populations. But let's kind of look at some of these notes here. People think that catch and release is the end-all be-all in bass fishing. Throw them back. That's my sport. Don't eat that. I'll tell you right now, you take a 14-inch bass or smaller, you cook that up in blackened fish tacos. Fantastic. Eat about like crappie. They're great fried too. I like them in blackened fish tacos. A little bit of seasoning on top, a little picante and all that. They're delicious. I'll be honest with you. They're good fried too. But we have seen so much in these giant tournaments, people talking about throw them back, release them back, throw them back, grow bigger, throw them back. When you throw them back, they're not going to grow bigger eventually. Not to mention, depending on how you handle them, if you boat flip that bass and it hits that carpet and you throw it back in the water without putting your live well at that point and giving it some slime coat, you've killed that fish. It may not die in the next 24 hours or even 72 hours. 1 to 2 weeks down the road, that fish is going to have horrendous health problems, because when that bass plopped onto that carpet, it removed its slime coat. By removing its slime coat, that opens that fish up to all types of bacterial and fungal infections. And that is a slow, painful death for fish. See it all the time. In fact, if you go to my Thad Moody Outdoors TikTok or Instagram, you'll see the zombie bass I have. It's a very skinny bass. It was still able to hunt some, but it's completely blinded because it had a double bacterial infection in its eyes, 2 big bulging eyes. And that is from being handled improperly, getting a bacterial eye infection on both sides, and it even had a fungal spot on its tail. I did what I could for it, released it back into the cold water. Hopefully it survives. It's been caught once since then, according to the lake manager. People were talking about it, so maybe it did survive. But catching that, boat flipping that fish in there, and you'll see it on MLF. They'll boat flip them, and if that thing touches the carpet, they take a penalty. And rightfully so. And even tossing it back at that point is not too good. If you put it in your live well after a long time, and you take it out of your live well and put it back, if that thing's super high stressed, and you throw it back in a different temperature water, something like that, it's a high chance that fish will die in the next 72 or so hours. If you pick up the fish without wetting your hands and hold it like a hot dog or something like that, and throw it back in, and all that slime's on your hand, it's a high chance that fish will have some sort of adverse side effects from losing its slime coat. And even in the kayak world, we like to write with CRP, catch, photo, release. Use a catch board, put that fish on the board, take that picture of it, throw it back in. If you don't wet that board and wet your hand and wet that net before you dip net that fish or bring that in or whatever, you remove all that slime coat, you're not doing any good to that fish. You're sentencing it a lot of times to a slow, painful death. And even though we see a lot of the studies I've seen have had, catch, photo, release and MLF style tournaments having around a 20 to 30% mortality rate versus the big tournaments where you bring the 5 fish in that can have up to 45% mortality rate in some cases. They have seen some, in some studies I saw it was around 50 to 55%, but most hovers around that 45 to to 40% mortality rate in these tournaments. So yeah, you're catching and releasing dead fish. You release 5, 2 are going to die. Statistics. It's not a bad thing though, guys and gals. It's not a bad thing to have some fish that die. It needs to happen. Turtles need to eat these fish. Other fish need these fish. Down in Mississippi, gators need to eat these fish. Osprey, eagles, herons, everything. Otters, raccoons. They all have to eat. They all eat fish. And they are trying to keep that population in check. But because of our way we manage stuff and so much high catch and release, and we put so much food and stuff into these lakes, and we drive up that population, we have to take fish out. You need to take, if you got a 100-acre lake, you need to take 15 to 20 pounds of bass out per acre. Sometimes you still need to add feeder fish in there every year just to keep it balanced out. And you'll see on these lakes, a good example, I think it was Chickamauga, quite a few years back, had a massive fish kill off. And then like 3 or 4 years later, it was horrible for that fish kill off. And 3 or 4 or 5 years later, the fishing was just fantastic. Catching big fish, all kind of stuff, because a lot of the little ones died off. Not turning your big fish out, but a lot of your little ones died off, and it just had a fantastic rebound. Nature kind of reset itself, and that happens every now and then. You'll see lakes all the time, massive fish kill offs. Everything's like, oh no, everything's going to go bad. It's nature. It happens. It's natural. And then a few years later, the fishing's just absolutely fantastic, and which is a good thing. But it's because those fish were taken out. So, turn the page. Let's just talk about the CRP stuff. So, while I am for, catch and release, if I catch a 6-7 pound bass, that's 100% your big females, your big breeding stock. I am going to throw those fish back. I fish the kayak series a lot. I used to boat fish tournaments, but I also fish the kayak series. I will 100% take the utmost care of those fish, even if it means taking an extra few minutes to make sure everything's good and wet, proper slime coat and all that. Even when I was in boat tournaments, I did. If I'm out fun fishing, it's again the 4+ pounders, the big females that need to be released back that will produce the next generation. Those are taking that much care of. Much 14 inches, 13 inches, 12 inches. I'm catching a ton of them. I'll stick them on a stringer. Won't do it during a tournament because I can't. But fun fishing, stuff like that, I'll stick them on a stringer. And if I see some people fishing on the bank for food, which you see a lot here in Mississippi, I'll give them to them. And because we're allowed 10 per day here in Mississippi. Creel limits are set there for a reason. It's not sit there for you can only take out 10. It's like you need to take out 10. That's why they're there. That's why the creel is set like that. And they adjust it. We've seen them adjusting crappie. They're reducing the number of crappie you can take right now. And we covered that in the last episode because of front-facing sonar. But now some lakes are increasing the number of bass you can take out because they need these fish taken out. There's some lakes I fish here in Mississippi that you have to keep every fish you catch. If it is a black bass species, spotted bass, largemouth bass, keep every bass you catch in that lake and take it out. No matter the size, no matter what, they want it out of these lakes because they're so overly populated because it's such a catch and release culture. It really started with a lot of your bass masters, MLF, catch and release culture. Don't get me wrong. I'm for it. I'm for releasing the big breeding stock. I'm for keeping stuff in balance. But we have to take some out. And we're seeing some devastating lakes. And I will say there's 3 lakes in Mississippi that produce absolute giant fish. Yes, they're walleye breeding lakes. Yes, they have a ton of shad dumped into them. But they also have a high population of people in those areas that when they catch some fish, they keeping them. I watched a guy fillet a 9-pound bass one day. That hurt my heart a little bit. I'm not going to lie, it did. Didn't say a word to him because it needs to happen. That just means that instead of having to take 15 1-pounders out per acre, I'm going to take that 1 9-pounder, then 6 1-pounders out per acre. Again, I like throwing the big ones back, but it's all in moderation. It all has to be done. All right, before we go any further today, guys, huge shout out to the people who helped me fish. Spear Point, Tactical Fishing Company, Redfin, Lowrance, all these companies help me do what I do. They don't really contribute to these videos, which, these podcasts is my thing. But these guys help me get out there and fish these tournaments. They help with a whole bunch of stuff for it, logistics of it. So I always have to give them a shout out for that. 100% great companies. And True Dave boots. I love their deck boots. Use discount code Thad Moody Outdoors, capital TMO, for 15% off True Dave boots and waders and hunting boots. And use T Moody 10 for 10% off Tactical Fishing Company, guys. Help support the companies that support me. I couldn't do what I do without these companies. So a huge shout out to them as always. Back to catch and release. We all fish tournaments, and we've seen those guys, and I've seen huge stinks brought up online about all kind of different things when it comes to the subject of catch and release culture. And I've seen people turn violent over this. And it's not really a good look for sportsmen. People will get so mad when they see people keeping bass and eating them. And I've seen, people call them out, people death threats, stuff like that. And guys, that's uncalled for. A lot of these people who are keeping this are eating them for food. I love catching bass as much as the next guy. I do. I love it. I went to school to study fish, undergrad and masters. So I love watching these fish populations thrive. And in some places up north, where we have species that are being hammered, that are endangered, that it's catch and release only, like some of your cutthroats and steelhead and stuff like that, some of your trout species, some of your salmonoid species, that it's catch and release only because those populations are in danger. That's because that's what the management says we need to do. We need to release them back so we have the breeding stock. You can keep one. That's cool. In Mississippi, we have catch and release only on walleye. We have the Gulf strain walleye here in Mississippi, super endangered species, federally protected. It looks a little bit like the walleye you see in other states, but it is a unique species to down here. Only lives about 10 years. They can get really big. I caught a 28.5-inch walleye at one of our lakes here, one of the breeding lakes. They are federally protected. They're catch and release only. There's one place in Mississippi you can keep one. It's Davis Lake. You can keep one walleye per person, and that's it. Everywhere else, whether it be the 10-Time Waterway, the other lakes, any random river they somehow found their way back into from the recycling programs, they are catch and release only. If you get caught with them, and that's federal prosecution. It's big time. When I was told from a lake manager, a guy got extradited out of state because he was kind of a light local guy. Extradited out of state, and he was prosecuted in another state, and they threw the book at him. Took his boat, took his truck, took his fishing gear, and he paid a whole lot of money per fish. So in instances like that, when these species are, near extinction or threatened, catch and release is needed. Our bass, our largemouth and spotted bass species, that we just catch a crap ton of these small ones, and they're just unhealthy. That's because of catch and release failure. The walleye coming back, that's catch and release success. The steelhead and migratory fish that's coming from the ocean like that are endangered, and salmonoids, that we're seeing a population start to come back. That's catch and release success. Catch and release does have success stuff. Catching 70 fish in 2 hours, all under a pound, that's a catch and release failure. Because those fish need to be taken out. If you go to a big public lake and you catch 70 plus bass in under an hour, and they're all little rinky dinks like this with inverted stomach growth like that, fish are starving. You might as well take them out, flay them up, make blackened fish tacos, have a big fish fry with your friends. Because if not, those fish are just going to starve to death anyway. Better take them out in a quick way than a slow, painful death for them. And that catch and release culture has really come into around back when Ray Scott and Bassmasters started. Now, don't get me wrong, Ray Scott, 99%, that's who started Bassmasters. Should have put that in my notes. When he started these terms stuff, you would see pictures of them keeping stringers of 30 and 40 pound fish. You would. And stick around to them, because we're going to talk about a world record real quick too. You'd see them keeping all these fish in fast populations. These catching big fish, big fish, big fish, catching these giants back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. This big fish. California, huge bass fishing culture. You'd see all these giant fish coming out of there. It's because a bunch of fish were getting eaten back then. It was a way of life. People ate these fish to survive. And as time has come on, that's gone away. And you look at Japan. Japan is creating absolute giant bass year in, year out. That's because in most parts of Japan, it's illegal if you catch a bass to throw it back in the water. They are a catch and kill only because they are an invasive species there. So they are a catch and kill only species, which you have to kill a 19-pound bass. That does hurt my heart a little bit, but I understand they're a very invasive species in Japan. But as you see, they keep growing giant bass. You know, out west, when these giant bass factories like the Delta and stuff were growing these monsters, a lot of people were eating the bass. And I've talked to a couple big name fisheries biologists. You know, Dr. Don Jackson, who was at one point one of the top freshwater fisheries biologists on the planet. He was also he is a good friend of mine, also one of my former professors. And I agree with what he told me one time. Until people start keeping bass like they did back in the day. Again, this man's in his 70s, so back in the day, you know, the 50s and 60s when people ate a lot of bass. We more than likely will never see a monster bass or a world record broken out of a public body of water again. Because catch and release culture has made that nearly impossible. Because so many lakes have such an overabundance of fish. And I know the comments right now, I'm not catching big fish like I used to. We're not catching any fish. Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. One, you could be a bad fisherman. Not saying you are, saying it happens. Two, a lot of sore lips like that. These fish get sick, they don't want to bite. We're not catching any big fish anymore. That's because they're all sudden growth and starving to death, and there's not enough food to go around. We're not catching any fish. That's a failure of the fishery. Something bad has happened with that. Probably fish killed that you may not know about, downriver or something like that. So there's all kinds of different variations. We may see one come out of a private lake where people highly manage and try to grow these giant bass. They take out what they need to. They put in what they need to. They have the habitat like they need to. We may see a world record one day coming out of a thing like that. And if you look him up on Instagram, places like that, the aquatic biologist, he gives fantastic, and shout out to you fantastic fisheries biologist, especially when it comes to lake management for bass species. He puts out a ton of great information, great studies on, you know, how to properly manage these fish, taking fish out, what needs to be taken out. I mean, he's grown 4-pound bass in under 3 years. Some pushing over 4 pounds. A 3-year-old bass that's over 4 pounds is ridiculous. That's from a highly maintained and managed lake, and he writes some programs that manage these lakes fantastically. Highly recommend to go check out his channel. Shout out to him. You have done fantastic work, and kudos to you, sir. I know we've talked many a time. But that's kind of the gist of the story today is catch and release culture has its pros and cons. For the species that need it, like salmonoids, some of your trout species, you know, your cutthroats, your steelhead, right now, crappie, Mississippi, your sturgeons, stuff like that, these walleye, and southern walleye, Gulf walleye strains that need catch and release, it is helping. It is doing good for them. But the species that people, you know, sought after, you know, more people fish for bass than any other species of fish in the world, probably. Catch and release culture's kind of failed them in a lot of ways. We need to start keeping fish, start eating bass, giving people who need it. Make blackened fish tacos, have a fish fry, cook it some other way. Grind it up and use it as fertilizer in your garden. Give it to the people who need it, the less fortunate, who are hungry. But keep some bass, eat some bass in lakes that need it. Creel limit is there for a reason, guys. Use it. A lot of research goes into determining what that creel limit is. So these biologists are begging you to keep fish so they don't have to go in and shock them and remove them and kill them for no reason. Keep fish and eat them. Make your fisheries better. Have a good time with it. Keep your small ones, throw your big breeding stock back. Have a fish fry with your kids. They'll love it. Do a catch and cook with your kids. They'll love it. Teach the next generation how to survive off the land, eating bass. Some people say they don't taste good. Again, small ones, pretty good. I like them. 4-pound bass, probably not going to eat those. They're not really all that tasty to me. But some people like them. Kudos to you. If you're eating a 4-pound bass, ain't for me. I like them smaller, but kudos to you. You're doing your part in helping conservation. So, without any further ado, guys, it's been a fun one to make. Catch and release is always a controversial topic when it comes to what people are seeing in the water, what they think they're seeing in the water versus what all of our research shows us and how we can fix stuff shows us and management plans show us. Feel free to have good civil discussions in the comment. I relish good civil discussions in the comment, but guys, keep it civil. Guys and girls and gals, whoever watches my video, nature's for everyone. I don't discriminate when it comes to conservation and nature. Nature's for everyone. Keep the comments civil. Kids come to these shows. They want to learn. My 4-H groups come watch these videos. They want to learn. Keep the comments civil. Take a kid fishing. Tight lines. And y'all have a wonderful day. Until next time. See you.